Minister, how are you today?
Fantastic.
Good, good. Hey, I want to again say thank you for all the time that you spend with my office in Calgary and the office here in Edmonton. You've always been open with your time, and I certainly appreciate that. And I certainly appreciate the people around you. I've had that opportunity to work with them, and you have more than capable staff and serve this province really well. So we're in good hands, in my opinion. I just kind of want to go down the same lines. We were just talked about communication and floods and disasters. And again, of course, our hearts go out to all the people that have been affected by the numerous disasters over the number of years. And again, I think it is a testament to the people within the department and the Alberta Emergency Management Agency and municipal affairs in general, how we've been able to deal with that. But one of the things that was outstanding, certainly over the last number of years, was the Provincial Operations Centre. Can you give us an update where we're at with the new Provincial Operations Centre?
Sure, and that's a really good point. One of the things that came out of the reports, or one of the reports, was about the fact that we need a new Provincial Operations Centre. So I'm very happy that we're moving along. Shane, Mr. Schreiber probably has a couple of details that, I'm sure he's very excited about it. So if you want to maybe give a quick update on that, Shane?
So, yeah, a new Provincial Operations Centre has been budgeted for under the capital plan. And we are in the design phase right now. The money is in infrastructure's budget. I believe it's $75 million to build and another $25 million to operate over the next 20 years. So the current location that we're planning for the new POC will be on the south side of Edmonton, down in the Alberta Innovates Park.
Oh, very good, very good. And so is there a timeline around that? I know you're in design phase right now.
Yeah, so it's a very aggressive timeline. They want to have, essentially, they want to start building by the end of the summer with move-in by the fall of 2020.
Right. And just as we're entering another season of wildfires, potential floods and those sort of things, and we're hearing some of that right now. So in terms of enhancing the capacity of emergency management within our communities, how many municipalities right now are participating in training and support in terms, again, that unified command system, brushing up on your incident command systems and that sort of thing? And then I guess if you could also detail where is the Alberta Emergency Management Agency using technology to reach out, in terms of, through mobile devices, that sort of thing, to where and when you have people so that they can be updated in real time and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I'll speak real quickly to some of the technology, just a little bit, like the Alberta Emergency Management, the app that we've got. So the feds are coming out with one that just gives you an update, and it's in extreme events, whereas ours will tell you, regionally, and will give you information about what's happening in your area. So you do have to download the app, and it's available on iOS or Android systems, and it's really, really quite good. It's got a lot of information on there. I'm really quite proud. We were one of the first, I think we might have been the first province to actually do that. So as far as technology on that part, that's one of them, the things that we're doing. Obviously, we use social media and every type of media that we can to get information out to people. But as far as, I don't know, other technology, I'm not. Shane, do you know of anything else that we? Right.
So there's a couple of things that we've done in AEMA to help improve emergency management throughout the province, and probably the biggest one is going to online learning for a lot of the emergency management courses. So last year we generated almost 11,000 online qualifications using our online courses. That was up from 5,000 the year before, and that is by far and away the most accreditations of any province in Canada. So that's one of the things we've done. We've tried to leverage new technology in terms of being able to deliver training.
Very good. And so where in the budget does it show the cost of this training, and is there a line item?
So it's under the policy and training program. That's under AEMA.
Okay, very good. Now, in terms of communicating, obviously, incident command and the people actually doing the work, that's one thing. Again, I remember the challenges of being able to communicate to people, especially when there is a large amount of people, communicating to them where their disaster recovery the DRP, where they're at in that system, and being able to update them. Is there any initiative within municipal affairs and the Alberta Emergency Management Agency to be able to give people real-time updates using technology so that there's less anxiety? They're more abreast to what's happening with their property and their file.
So you mean as to the DRP applications themselves?
Yes.
Well, I mean, they still have the ability to reach out to us and we can give them the updates. I mean, that's usually how it works, is that, if they want an update, they get a hold of us and let us know, and then we can get the information for them. So I think that hasn't changed in that part, but I will say that we brought a lot of that in-house, where we have case managers that can work directly with the applicants. So I think that's going to help a lot going forward, to make sure that they have a point person. And we've added more staff to handle those types of things, because they're happening more and more. So we have added more staff for that, and just efficiencies and improving technology in general. But yeah, I think that point of contact has been a really good thing for us.
Right. Now, just in terms, I know that the City of Calgary will have their disaster alley coming up here. Can you speak to other programs, whether that happens in Edmonton and rural areas, where actual citizens can participate, what to do in a disaster, that sort of thing? And again, do you have any numbers of communities in general and just citizens in general who are participating in this, given the fact that we've had a number of disasters that affected large communities in the last number of years?
Yeah. So I know that I'll let Shane speak to some of maybe the specific programs, but I know that we do every year have an exercise that AEMA does, as I alluded to, as I said before, around Grand Prairie this year, and it was involving everybody that we could, obviously local municipalities and first responders, but there are some programs. I'll let Shane speak to maybe some of the training and things. It's mostly to do with municipalities and making sure their emergency managers are on board and trained, because I find that some of the folks, you haven't had a disaster for a long time, and then when it happens, you need to know. And Shane said earlier about practicing this stuff, so I'll let maybe him give some specifics on that.
So Disaster Alley is Calgary's part in Emergency Preparedness Week. So nationally, Emergency Preparedness Week is the first week in May, and we try and support every community having a bit of an event, whether it's Disaster Alley. We're going to do the same thing here in Edmonton, and that's the way we really engage the public. We are also within AEMA building something called Alberta Ready, which will be a program that we want to take out to schools and to communities that talks about individual readiness. And do some training around that. We're going to do that in partnership with Red Cross, the Insurance Bureau of Canada, and other organizations to be able to do that. And then, as always, we have a wide suite of information on our website. And after every emergency alert goes out, we see our website get a big spike in hits, because people are going there to learn about how to get personally ready. So.
Right. So in terms of community resiliency, and I think you mentioned that on page 118, one of your key strategies in 3.5. How many communities are you gauged that are actually resilient? And again, can you desegregate those communities, like First Nations? Like, what are we doing with First Nations groups, maybe remote Alberta, those sort of things? Are you keeping statistics on communities? Is their resiliency improving? Are they building levels of resiliency, or are we seeing communities fall behind?
Yeah, I mean, if Shane's got some numbers on it, but I know that in particular we have field officers all across the province and on First Nations as well, and a lot of First Nations are actually really well prepared. So that's a good thing. But part of what this new bill that we've introduced in the House is to work with those municipalities to see what their plans are, to get them to have a look at it, to understand that they need to update it, and also because of I think across the province we've had almost 50% turnover in municipal officials, so, and administrative staff. So I think that's also some of the things that we're doing, trying to work with municipalities to say, hey, okay, where are you at, and how do we help you to plan for a new plan going forward, and to go through exercises. A lot of these training courses and things are in Alberta Emergency Management already. It's just making people aware of them, right, to let them understand that. So I don't know if you have any numbers, Shane? Like it's,
Right,
I mean, hard to speculate, so.
Yeah, so one of our performance measures is actually how many community emergency management plans we review. We aim to get 90% on an annual basis. That means we go in and take a look and can assess, at least based on their paper plan, how ready they are. And what we want to do is through the updated Emergency Management Act and some of the supporting regulation is really support and drive some additional work at every level so that the province as a whole is far more resilient and that communities are far more resilient. And that goes everything from public education, individual training, qualified, elected and appointed officials.
Right. And just another quick thing, just as it comes to mind, when it comes to the DRP, how many outstanding files do we have from the 2013 and maybe even beyond? And I know that that's a difficult, it's not an easy thing to manage. Some of those things are complex. I totally get that, and it's not a point of criticism. It's just, what are we doing to try to speed those along? Obviously, working with insurance companies. And again, are we seeing improvement of moving those along just based on understanding the system? Are we reducing redundancies again to put people's mind at ease and trying to get these files off the government's books?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think there's about 2 maybe outstanding, I think.
There are 2 left.
2 left? Okay.
Open.
But as far as when you're talking about efficiencies and things like that, that's a good point. I think part of that is educating municipalities and folks out there what the DRP is and what it's supposed to be used for.
Right.
I think the default for a lot of folks that might not understand it is to go directly to the province when we have a lot of these smaller disasters that are insurable or, when insurance is readily available, these types of things. I think part of making that process quicker and what we've been trying to do, and it's been working, is to make sure they know what's happening, right? So a lot of my discussions, to be honest, over the last year of being minister, have been surrounding that and trying to let them know what's available, especially, right now in light of the southern Alberta floods that are going on. I've been in contact with a couple of different mayors down there and our folks have been there daily, so that we get on board with that and we have people there to assist. So yeah, and also when Shane mentioned in Insurance Bureau of Canada earlier, they've been really good, and especially at the Fort Mac fire, there was insurance people on the ground. I mean, very, very quickly to help citizens. And we've been working really closely with them to try to make sure all these things go a lot quicker, a lot more efficient, because, in the heat of that, pardon the expression, it's, people are frazzled. They don't know what's going on, and we need to try to be there. So, yeah, we are definitely trying to find more collaborations, and we can help people. So
Very good. I just want to move on to library system boards, serve their communities by planning and shaping library systems, which are critical, especially to rural areas, in terms of bringing people together, information together, and given their use of public funds to perform their mandates. Does this budget contemplate bringing library boards and library system boards into the fold of Alberta public agencies?
do you want to expand on that? Anthony will.
My name's Anthony Lempers, ADM of Corporate Services. So library boards or library system boards are made up of member municipalities. So it would be, at this point in time, it's not something that there's been any contemplation to bring them into a Alberta government public agency.
Okay, I'll move on. Page 121 under expense library services, you've cut that line item from 49.7 million to 36.9 million. So what's the rationale?
Oh, yeah. So the decrease, that's a good question. Thank you for that. So the decrease of 12.7 million is what you're speaking of.
Yeah.
Under the Provincial Library Network funding, it reflects the absence of last year's one-time capital grants. So it doesn't reflect a decrease in the operating grants or other program support.
Okay. So what is the total demand? What was the total demand for library funding last year? And how does that compare to this year?
Just grab those for you. Just give me a second.
Yeah, that's
Sorry, member, just trying to get the right information for you. Yeah, if you want to just speak to it.
absolutely. So, honourable member, when you remove the the $12.7 million of one-time grant funding from last fiscal year, if you don't count that, then the funding last fiscal year is the same as the funding this fiscal year. There hasn't been any change. So total funding would have been in the $37 million range, the same as this fiscal year, if you don't take into account the $12.7 million of one-time grant funding.
Right. So which communities, in your opinion, will be most starved of library and information resources this year? Like, are there communities that are outliers that are having challenges with their library services?
One of the things we've done as a province is we've created the Provincial Public Library Network. And in order to receive our operating grant funding, one of the things you do is you agree to resource share. So what that means is you've got access to, in your local public library, to the information that's available throughout the entire public library network. So you might be in a small community with a smaller library, but because of the interlibrary loan resource sharing and because of the electronic resources that are made available across the province, that information is shared across the province. So you're not really starved.
Okay, very good. And so how is your department working with Service Alberta to make sure that, you know, rural Alberta and remote Alberta has access to high-speed internet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good question. Actually, just a real quick touch on what some of these municipalities are doing. I've actually seen a lot of these municipalities out there with little buses bringing, the libraries bringing books to small hamlets and things like that too. Right. So it's actually quite interesting the way that they're working together. Now, as far as you're talking about SuperNet for Service Alberta, so I mean, everything happens in a municipality, but that is under the jurisdiction of Service Alberta, so I don't really want to, you know, speak out of turn on that because it's not really under my ministry. So, but when you look at it, the SuperNet connectivity for libraries, the breakdown of the funding is 2.4 million. So
okay, very good.
Right.
Very good. So, page 116 in the second paragraph of your strategic conduct, the government of Alberta continues to implement new innovative initiatives to strengthen our communities and making life better for Albertans. So, how is Municipal Affairs working with municipal housing corporations and others to provide supported housing to address legalization of recreational cannabis? As that starts to come online, how are you working with municipalities?
As far as housing goes?
As far as housing, so how are you going to ensure that people living using the medical cannabis and or legalization of cannabis within provincial, like, I mean, obviously housing boards and the Calgary Housing Corporation, that sort of thing, how are you working with them to make sure that people are able to do that, and what are the administrative practices to approve those sort of things?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's an ongoing process right now, to be honest with you, as things adapt and change, but we have the Cannabis Secretariat in Justice that kind of is I would say that we're all kind of working with, is kind of the go-to that kind of links us all. So that's who we're going through, and you know, as I said, I think we're going to have to adapt as time goes on here. I mean, when you're talking about municipalities in private facilities, I mean, you have some facilities that are non-smoking, right? So I think there's still those local authorities that they have that ability, and right. Landlords and things like that. But we are working through the Cannabis Secretariat. Right.
So what are your plans for cannabis revenue sharing with municipalities?
Mm-hmm. So right now, again, we are working with the Cannabis Secretariat. I think as this goes along, we are trying to, you know, we were handed this by the feds and basically pushed a sheet of paper and said, here you go. So we are working hard with municipalities to understand what it's going to look like. I think, you know, people are just projecting numbers and trying to figure out right now. So we don't actually have a number of what this is going to look like. So every time I talk to a municipality, you know, one of the things I talk to them about is saying, okay, as we go, we're going to have to change, right? What this is going to look like, I don't think any of us know right now, to be quite frank with you. So it's we think it's going to be fairly, you know, kind of a wash as it is right now with the money. That being said, we still have to work through a fair amount of detail before, I mean, I believe it's August at some point where they think they're going to legalize it now. So, yeah, it's an ongoing process.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you for your staff, Chair. I'm good for now. Thanks.